All right, guys, we're back with another Ask Me Anything where I answer questions that agents and business owners submit on how to grow their business. And today's question is, how do I balance lead generation, working with clients, and personal time, right? That good old work-life balance. This is something I've struggled with for 20 plus years now. And what I've learned, I'm going to share with you, right? What I've learned in the last 20 years. And here's the number one thing, right? Is there are going to be seasons in your life when balance is out of whack, right? It's just the reality, right? When you're trying to grow a business, especially when you're first starting out, you got to put a lot of effort in and you're not really going to see a lot of return on that effort, right? I like to tell agents, that are getting into the business, think of your business like a rocket ship, right? You ever seen a rocket ship take off? When it's going to space and they're launching it and you see it on TV and it's like the rocket ship's like shaking, it's making all kinds of momentum in the beginning, right? To try to build up some speed, but it's not really moving fast, right? And it little by little, it starts going faster and faster and faster. And before you know it, boom, that thing is out into space, right? That's the same thing in your business. In the beginning, you're going to have to put a lot of effort, create a lot of momentum. You're not going to really see things pop off for you until that momentum starts rolling, right? The ball starts rolling and you take off, and eventually, boom, things start becoming easier and things start to come to you. But there's a lot of grind in the beginning, right? So, back to work-life balance, right? In the beginning of your career, when you're trying to build this foundation, or maybe you're in a season where, hey, you need to make some more money, like there's going to be grind time, right? There's grind time. And so I think that's number one, is you got to just set the right expectations with yourself. I don't think anybody out there who is truly successful has really figured out work-life balance. It's a game of, juggling. You're constantly juggling. And what I can tell you is a good exercise for you to do is to take some time, maybe every month or every quarter, and we do what's called a clarity exercise, where we write down the different areas of our business and we write down how we're showing up, right? With our family, with our health, with our business, with our finances, and all those things. And what that does is it gives you a chance to kind of check in with yourself and see how you're doing, so that you can make tweaks and adjustments to try to remain more in balance, right? It's a constant juggling act, right? It's hard to do. Now, these are some things that you can do, right, to try to maintain that balance as much as possible. And number one is you got to have a schedule, right? Like if you want to be able to balance work, life, and do all the things you want to do while still closing deals and still spending time with your family and taking care of yourself, you need to live by a schedule. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of agents make, is they think, I'm self-employed, so I can just kind of work whenever I want. It's the opposite, right? If you work whenever you want, your results are going to be all over the place and you're going to be out of whack and out of balance, right? For me personally, I have 2 kids, right? My daughter's going to be 12, my son's 8, he'll be 9 soon. And so I'm very, very much involved in their life and their sports and extracurricular activities. So for me, I've designed my business in a way that serves my lifestyle, right? If you were to look at my calendar, or even just look at the way I run my week, there's some days that I take my kids to school, right? So I got to get up early, take them to school. And then there's other days I don't, right? But the constant thing in the morning is I have morning time for myself, right? If I don't have to take the kids to school that day, I get my workouts in the morning. I listen to a podcast while I'm working out, or I watch some sort of content that's going to stimulate my mind or get me going for the day. And I kill those 2 birds with one stone. So I wake up early, right? I got to wake up at, 6 a.m. Maybe that's not that early to some people, but for me, it's like I'm pretty much waking up at 6 to 6:30 every single day, depending if I take the kids to school or not. And I'm getting my workout in. If I have to take my kids to school that day, I'll go get them to school, I'll come back and I'll get my workout in, right? But that's constant, right? I do that, 4 or 5 days a week, some days on the weekends, just depending on how I'm feeling. But that's like, you're never going to find me out of that routine, right? Unless I'm like sick or I have a one-off appointment or something like that. But that's constant. Then from there, I'm getting ready, for my day. I'm in the office, or if I'm working from home that day, I'm in front of my laptop and I'm getting to work. I have a way that people book appointments with me. I use Calendly, for people, if people want to meet with me, or if I have meetings, they go book the meetings in there, and those meetings are already predetermined of when I'm available. Because some days I got to pick my kids up from school. Some days I got to take them to practice. Some days I have things that I want to do for myself, right? So those times are already blocked off in my calendar. So people can't book appointments during those times. And all the other times that are free, it's open game for business, right? And so even like doctor appointments or dentist appointments too, I got to fit those in there. So when you live by a calendar and you live by a schedule, you're able to design your week in a way that serves you and not the other way around, right? And I think that's the hard part, is a lot of times people think, I'm grinding, I got to grind, so I just got to be available 24/7. And that's just not realistic. You're going to burn yourself out that way. Sure, you're going to have to work hard, and there may be certain seasons when there's less me time, right? And there's more work time, right? And certain seasons when it's different, right? If you have kids like me, it's a balance of me time, work time, family time, right? And so I think that's the way you're going to make that work is you got to live by a calendar. Here's a cool way to also have your calendar work out for you in the business setting. So in the mornings, in the AM, we call those money-making time, money-making activities, right? So these are things like prospecting, following up with our leads, trying to book appointments. And then in the PM, we reserve that for servicing our clients, right? And I do it that way. I'm not meeting with clients in the morning, right? Unless it's like an emergency or that's the only time they're free. I always try to push my appointments to meet with clients in the afternoon. And so I'm not meeting with clients in the morning unless it's an emergency, right? I'm always trying to set my appointments in the afternoon so that I can leave my mornings open to generate new business, generate new appointments, right? And then in the midday, 12 to 2-ish or something, I'm doing either training, right? Attending training or educating myself, right? I'm getting some lunch, right? I usually pack my lunch, most days, because that keeps me on track also with my diet. Sometimes I'll DoorDash, but it makes it easier so I don't have to leave the office and I can stay in the flow. And then I'm also using that time to catch up on emails and paperwork and stuff like that as well. And then my afternoons are blocked off for appointments. And so I remember what I used to do early on in my career when I was heavy in production was I would have 3 appointment slots a day. I would have a 1 o'clock, I would have a 3 o'clock, and I would have a 5 o'clock. And maybe 2 days out of the week, I would have some later appointment slots. If I have clients that need to meet later in the evening, I'd maybe have a 6 o'clock appointment, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's how I ran my business for many, many years. The AM was all about prospecting. The PM was all about trying to fill those appointment slots. And then what I would do too, if I had personal appointments, like I had to go to the doctor, I had to go to my kid's school, or I had to go to the dentist, I would try to fill it in one of those appointment slots as well so that my whole routine didn't get out of whack. And so what I'm trying to get at, guys, is that it's up to you to be in control of your life, right? If you let your business pull you in every direction, and if you make yourself available at all times for everybody, now your business is running you. You're not running your business, right? And that's a way that you're going to burn out quickly. You're going to hate your life. You're going to hate your business. Things are going to slip through the cracks. You're going to stop taking care of yourself. You're going to miss the gym, all those different things that keep you going and keep you active. And you're going to look back, and several years later, you're going to look back and like, man, I don't really like what I'm doing. That's why people get out of the business. They get tired because they don't run it, with the schedule. The other thing you can do, right, to manage clients as well is set the tone with clients, right? When you meet with clients in the beginning, when you're first meeting them for your consultation or whatever, is let them know, hey guys, this is how I run my business, right? This is how I service my clients, In the mornings, I'm typically, working in the office, working on paperwork and stuff. In the afternoons is typically when I set up servicing my clients. So if you guys wanted to ever meet with me, I have these slots already predetermined that are reserved, and we try to make one of those work. If for some reason those don't work and we got to, make an exception, then we can, figure that thing out. You can also tell them, hey, I'm available on Saturdays between this time and this time. And you could even say, hey, on Sundays, I take the day off. I reserve Sundays for family time. And to take care of my family, just like I take care of my clients, I got to take care of my family as well. And, I got to go to church or whatever you're into, right? And so you can tell them that. And what's going to happen is you're setting the expectations right up front, and people are going to respect you for that, right? You also got to tell them when it's okay for them to call you and when you will respond. Hey guys, I'm typically available for a phone call up until this time. After this time, I typically will return calls the next morning between these times, because by that time I'm at home and I'm dealing with, family and personal stuff. And so if you set the expectations for your clients, you are teaching them on how to work with you and how to fall in line to your schedule that you designed, right? You got to remember, this is your life. This is your business. Your business should serve you, right? Not the other way around where you're only serving your business 24/7. And it's just not worth it, guys. Trust me, right? After doing this for 20 years and learning the hard way many times, I've kind of figured out that this is how you got to go, right? And don't remember, your schedule is going to look different from somebody else's schedule, right? Don't try to be like that person next to you in your office who's in a different stage of their life. They're in a different chapter. They got different things going on in their life and they have different availability. Your schedule is not going to look like theirs. Of course, we all got to work hard. We all got to be disciplined, but we got to design this thing in a way where you can check off all the boxes. You can have everything you want if you properly plan and if you stick to the plan. That's the major thing. So there you go, guys. Work-life balance. That's how you do it best. Hope this helps. See you on the next one.